welcome to another Coffee with Colin, and thank you for joining me. During the week, a couple of buddies and I started a social singing club called the Payday Singers Club. We started it here in Ballina, Killaloe, in the Washerwoman, and it's going to happen on the last Wednesday of every month. And of course it's payday by midnight on the last Wednesday of every month, so that's why it's called the Payday Singers Club, and you're very welcome. Come down anytime. A bit of crack. Anyway, in preparing for it, I came across a song that I knew many years ago, John Denver's song called Friends With You. And the opening lines caught my attention when I was preparing for this week's Coffee with Colin. And the opening lines go, "What a friend we have in time, gives us children, makes us wine, tells us what to take or leave behind." You see, time flows akin to a river flowing over a stone on its riverbed. Time just flows inexorably. But your time and my time is limited, and there are 1440 minutes in every day, and once the minute is gone, it's gone forever. Now that said, I'm not proposing, never have done, please God never will propose, that you and I use every moment and every waking breath to pursue the almighty dollar. What I am proposing is that we make friends with time and we learn to go with its natural flow. So that's the first lesson, learn to go with the flow. The second thing that struck me is we all have problems. You've got problems and I've got problems. I don't know what yours are, you don't know what mine are. But the reality is there isn't a hall door in Ireland that isn't closed at night on something that the people behind it would prefer didn't exist. And most problems can be solved, and most problems can be solved over time. We can't wave a magic wand and make it go away, but we can take steps to rectify whatever the problem is. And I came across a phrase, thought it was really interesting. It said, there is a time in the life of every problem when it's big enough to see, yet small enough to solve. And the key is to find the right time and be patient when implementing a solution. So you've got to take steps towards implementing a solution to the problems that you and I have, but then we've got to be patient. And it goes on to say, inexperienced people expect problems to be settled instantly, but experienced people are like the master sculptor who keeps striking the marble block with steady blows of the hammer. Unlike the rookie who expects to split the stone with one blow, he knows if he just keeps working at it, he will eventually succeed. So the second lesson we've got to take is that we need to have patience and let time have her way. In recent weeks, a friend reached out to me to say she particularly enjoyed my Letterkenny blog post. For those of you that don't know what it is, it was where I alluded to the destination for your life or my life metaphorically being arriving in Letterkenny in beautiful County Donegal in the northwest of Ireland. And wherever you are in the world, you could choose to walk to Letterkenny if you wish. From your home, from your office, you could choose to walk to Letterkenny. What's it going to take? Time, right? You might have to take a ferry or a plane or something, but you can effectively walk from wherever you are to Letterkenny if you give yourself enough time and if you keep on stepping. But you'll never get to Letterkenny. You'll never arrive at your destination if you don't know what your destination is in the first place. And that's the problem that I see with many people in life today. They don't know what their destination is, so they just, when life isn't working for them, they just work harder and faster and stay up later, burn the candle at both ends, expecting that to solve their problems, and it'll never solve their problems because they don't know where they're headed. Right? So the third lesson is you got to know what your destination is. So when you get into the flow, and you start to develop some patience and you know where you're headed, well then the fourth principle comes into play. And the fourth principle is make haste slowly. Make haste slowly, right? Roald Amundsen, Norwegian explorer, was credited as the first man to arrive at the South Pole, and he did so on the 14th of December in 1911. And he made it to the pole and back in 99 days, 10 full days quicker than he'd actually planned for, because he made haste slowly, because he got into the flow, because he developed patience, because he knew where he was headed. His apparent competition was Scott. Scott was racing him to the pole to be the first man there. Amundsen didn't know whether Scott had made it or not until he got there and realised he was in fact first. But he didn't race to get there, he just made haste slowly. Scott, on the other hand, was racing to get there. Scott made it to the pole eventually, weeks after Amundsen, and then Scott and his party died on the way back. They never made it back. Amundsen's plan to make haste slowly revolved around his preparation. He got into the flow 10 years before he made the expedition. He developed patience over those 10 years. He knew where he was headed, he knew what he was preparing for. He took steps towards it, and then he took his time, made haste slowly. And when he got to the continent, he set a goal to make 15 nautical miles progress each day and then take 6 hours break and start again another 15 nautical miles. He was using the fact that the southern hemisphere, it's summer and you get 24-hour daylight. So he was 15 nautical miles, 6 hours stop, 15 nautical miles, 6 hours stop. Now think about it. He stopped for 6 hours despite the fact that he had no idea where Scott was, right? But he decided he wanted to make haste slowly. And he did so, and he achieved his goal, and he arrived at the South Pole and into the history books on the 14th of December 1911. So the 4 principles around the proper use of time, in my opinion, are get into the flow, develop patience, know where you're headed, and make haste slowly. You know that phrase, 2 steps forward and 1 step back? Nothing wrong with it. 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still progress. Make haste slowly, be patient, get into the flow, know where you're headed, and make progress, even if it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And who are you competing with anyway? Who was Amundsen competing with? Was he competing with Scott? Not really. Amundsen was competing with Amundsen. And your competition, my friend, and my competition, is whoever's staring back at us from the mirror. So why don't we be kind to the competition? You be kind to you, I'll be kind to me. And have a good one. And thank you for joining me for this week's Coffee with Colin. I hope and trust as ever you got something from it. Very important to consider what's been shared here today and apply it into your thinking for this next week. And then equally as importantly, come back next week and we'll share another coffee together and I'll ruminate on some other aspect of life and business. Between now and then, get some great coffee, get some fresh air. If you spend too much time with people, I recommend you take a little time alone. And then conversely, if you spend too much time alone, I recommend you go meet some people. And then when the time is right, and only when the time is right, get your head back in the game, get organised for the week ahead, get stuck in, make next week count, remember it's a game, make haste slowly, and I'll see you here this time next week for another Coffee with Colin. Sláinte. I love great coffee. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.